I step for a warrior mindset. Today we have Sean Patton with us, and he is a U.S. Army Special Forces commander, executive coach with Novus Global, and thought after leadership speaker and trainer. He is the author of A Warrior's Mindset and the host of the No Limit Leadership podcast. Oh, fellow podcast. That's good. Sean
That's
empowers
right.
leaders and teams to move beyond high performance to create transformational results. So, Sean, tell us, what are the 5 steps to have a warrior mindset?
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Are Leaders podcast with Harry Sardinas. Interviews with world's most influential entrepreneurs that share tips about how to grow your business exponentially. Charismatic speaking, leadership, branding, marketing strategies designed to help you monetize your knowledge, find true happiness, and manifest your goals and dreams.
Well, thank you so much, Harry. Yes, so there's 5 steps to having a warrior's mindset. And I also think that first, let me just say that let's define warrior a bit, because that term can really stir different things in different people. And there might be people thinking, well, how does this apply to me? Like, I'm not a warrior. I'm a father. I'm a mother. I'm an educator. I'm a business person. I define a warrior as someone who fights for a noble cause greater than themselves. And my argument would be that pursuit of something greater than yourself, a noble pursuit better than or bigger than yourself, is also the path to fulfillment in life. And so that's how I define a warrior. So with that in mind, the first step is gratitude. Gratitude is our eternal fuel source. It's around us everywhere. And we have 2 major drivers in our lives. If you dig down behind every motivation, it either comes from fear or love. Gratitude always comes from love, and it's always there. So that's our eternal fuel source to drive us forward, gratitude. Number 2 is an internal locus of control. That's maximizing our power by focusing on only what's ours to influence. We give power and energy away to things outside ourselves. We start blaming the market or our family or our employees or comparing ourselves to other people. We suck our energy up. So internal locus of control is step 2. Step 3 is a North Star. That is clearly identifying a vision worth transformation, that noble purpose bigger than yourself to aim at. So you have a point, a purpose. Step 4 is self-discipline. That's how we turn intent into execution. It separates dreamers from doers. And self-discipline really comes down to design. I'm happy to go into this deeper. A lot of people think that self-discipline, even on those elite military teams that I was a part of, it's about creating a life designed around your North Star. And then the 5th step is perseverance. And perseverance is about having the intestinal fortitude and commitment to overcome not just the challenges that show up as we pursue our North Star, but also apathy, which tends to creep in as we have increasing levels of success. So gratitude, internal locus of control, North Star, self-discipline, perseverance.
So, Sean, tell us, what are the lessons from leadership that you learned when you were in the as a commander of the armed force?
So many powerful lessons. And I was lucky that I spent 10 years as an active duty Army officer in the US Army. And the first 5 was in the regular Army. I was an infantry officer. I was a rifle platoon leader with 40 soldiers. And then I was a sniper platoon leader. And during that time, I spent 14 months in Southwest Baghdad, Iraq in combat. Then I went to Army Special Forces, and after a couple of years of training, earned my Green Beret. Army Special Forces are also known as the Green Berets. And I commanded 2 different 12-person detachments there, including 8 months in Afghanistan and then some other places in the Middle East. So interesting part when it comes to leadership is those are 2 different types of units. And the sort of comparison into the private sector or civilian world would be the regular Army, the regular military, I think, and this is going to be true in almost any country, in almost any military, is like leading inside of a giant corporation. Like the regular military is, there's clearly defined roles and responsibilities and clear metrics and processes, and you fill out this one role because it's a big machine that has to function. And so when you're in that type of organization and you're leading in that type of organization, it's really about getting buy-in for the mission that everyone is accomplishing and clearly defining the roles. That's something that I've seen as I now work with bigger clients and larger organizations, that what they don't have is clarity around what their role is and what success looks like. So I would say that's the first thing, is when you have clarity around roles and responsibilities and what function do you play inside the bigger organization. Because if you don't have that, people tend to feel just like a cog in a machine, right? Like they're just like a system that they're being managed, and they're not using their creativity. They're not bought in. They're confused and vague about what they're doing actually matters. And so we need to have some clarity. And the second big leadership lesson I would say that comes into play is clearly defining, in those larger organizations especially, what is that individual's vision and mission. Because often as leaders, we assume that everybody's major motivation in this role is money. And sometimes it is. I mean, that's a key part, but sometimes it's not. And some people are trying to progress in the ranks and climb the ladder, and they want more and more responsibility, and they're trying to grow and get higher positions of authority. Some people aren't. Some people are just trying to play their role. And what matters them most is that, they've got a son or a daughter who is a teenager and this is their last year playing soccer, and their games start at 5, but they don't get off work till 5:30, and they're missing it. And what would really matter most to them is if they could get off work at 4:30 and they could get and watch their child play soccer their last year. Like, that might be what matters most to them, but you won't know that as a leader unless you ask. And so where the real magic comes in any organization, but I think it's very important in larger organizations, is to have a conversation and get clear on what matters to that person. What is their motivation? Where are they headed in life? What do they want out of life? And then align that with what the company mission is. So now when that person gets what they want most, the company gets what it wants most. And when you align those two things, you unlock all new levels. So I'm happy to talk about the special forces side, but I would say in larger organizations, those two things, clarity and figuring out and aligning vision and mission.
Yeah, so a lot of, and thanks for your service, by the way. A lot of lessons from the military can be applied to business and to entrepreneurship, like discipline, leadership, vision first. So, building your own business, what have you leveraged that you have learned into the armed forces that have helped you to build and grow your business?
Now, it's actually a great segue question, because we just talked about sort of my time in leadership inside the conventional military. And now, what is the difference? I mentioned how in the regular military, the big army, it's like the biggest corporation you could ever work for, right? And then you go to the special operations side or inside the Army Special Forces side, and that's like entrepreneurship. You're with a much smaller group of very high agency, very high capable people that's operating in the gray. There aren't clearly defined roles and responsibilities. You have to kind of define those as you go. You have to, in some cases, you're creating your own mission, right? Like, give the kind of crazy example, but it's not that far off, of like being on an Army Green Beret team. Instead of coming down and saying, like, here's your mission and here's what success looks like, and like get it being given to you, they're more like, hey, these two groups are warring with each other in this mountainous region in the middle of Asia, and like we have no idea why or how to stop them, but it's cascading into the city in violence and terrorism. Here is a bunch of resources and 12 guys. We're going to drop you off. You go figure it out and tell us what we need to do. Like, that's that type of mission, which anyone who's an entrepreneur is like, oh yeah, that's entrepreneurism. Like that's you're trying to create something out of nothing, right? And so often it's like, clearly defining the problem and making sure we understand, what is the problem we're trying to solve, and then coming up with creative and different ways to solve that problem, and how do we leverage resources and people to attack that. And so I think one of the biggest lessons that allowed me to build businesses and serve now as an executive coach, entrepreneurs, is this idea of how to plan and sort of make sense and order out of the chaos so we can take steps forward. So often in entrepreneurship. It's just looks so messy and it's so noisy. And there's so much distraction and chaos. And so what's so critical is for us to clearly identify and say, this is clearly the problem. And we're going to come up with multiple ways to address this. And then we're going to try one or try two and see what works and adjust off of that. Where a lot of honestly conventional military leaders struggle with this, just same way that I find a lot of people that come from big businesses struggle with this ambiguity, is the ability to say, hey, we're not going to get obsessed with the solution. We're going to stay obsessed with the problem. And we're going to be flexible in the different solutions we bring to the table. And we're going to test and we're going to try and see what works. And we're going to iterate over and over again. And what's so critical in what makes Army Special Forces and the Green Berets, I think one of the reasons so successful is the same thing that makes any startup or entrepreneur so successful, is that we have to become a learning organization. We have to have a mechanism to try things and get feedback and then adjust off that feedback. And the better that system is, the better we'll be in the end. Where we run into problems is we want to take our time and build the perfect solution all at once. And then we go try it and it doesn't work. And we go, oh, we just spent a year trying to come up with the perfect solution, instead of saying, let's try one thing this month and let's just try one little task at a time and iterate off that. And that is how you operate successfully when you're in the gray, when you're in the unknown, when you're out in the market. We have to iterate and get real feedback in real time. And I would tell leaders to focus on building that process. If that process is built well, your likelihood of success goes through the roof. Everything else can be great, but if you don't have that process down to be able to iterate and learn off of failure, your chances of success are very low.
So tell us about your book. Why did you decide to write this book? And what was your biggest challenge? And what's your favorite chapter?
Oh, good question. So when I first started coaching, let me head back. So when I got out of the military, and I knew I wanted to do what I do now. I knew I wanted to coach and work with leaders and train leadership inside companies and make better leaders, because I'm a firm believer that leadership can change lives. It can definitely change the world. But Harry, I'm sure you've been a part of teams and organizations with terrible leaders. And I'm sure you've been a part of organizations with great leaders. And the life, like the day-to-day, hour-to-hour life experience inside those organizations is markedly different, right? When you're in an organization with great leaders, you show up with energy and joy, and you're excited to do the work, and your whole life and day is better. When you show up to an organization with terrible leadership, you dread the day. And just life is too precious to do work that you hate, to spend your life and time and energy not in a place that gives you energy and life and joy. And so, to me, this idea of leadership is why I'm so passionate about it. It's because to me, it comes down to an appreciation and respect for the magnificence of life. It's that deep to me. So I knew I wanted to do that. But I'd crammed in 14 years, 4 years at the military academy at West Point, 10 years as an officer. I'd crammed a lifetime of leadership lessons into that time in the military. But I didn't know what was going to apply or not apply in the business world. I'd never been in business, and I went to the military academy. There's no business classes or no marketing classes at West Point. So I thought, what's the quickest way for me to see what applies and what doesn't, right? I got to go out and try things. I got to iterate, make mistakes, and learn new lessons and see what did I learn that's going to apply out here and what isn't. And so I thought the quickest way for me to do that was two things. One, get a formal education in business. So I got my master's in business administration. And then two was, if I can start a company and make it self-sustainably profitable, that'll be the quickest way to learn these lessons, right? It doesn't have to be some billion-dollar unicorn. It has to operate and make money without me there. And as long as it can do that, I'll feel comfortable moving into what I do now and working with business leaders. I promise I'm just going to answer the question in your book. So about the book. So I did that, and turns out that starting a business with zero business or industry experience is the fastest way to make as many mistakes as possible. And so 3 years later, I went through a bankruptcy and lost everything at my first company. And then I started a second company and took those lessons and grew that to a multi-million-dollar valuation in 3 years and runs itself. And so I transitioned after that, right around 2020, 2021 into full-time coaching. And so I started working with leaders. I'm so excited. I mean, I get to work with the people I want to work with. I get to talk about leadership. I get to train it. And I was working with some very successful leaders, managers inside companies. And when I would talk to them about management principles, they got it. I was talking about that like business stuff, right? Like how does the business function? What do they do? What are the plans for business? Like what are their systems? Great. And then we started talking about them as a leader. And so the real question I asked them was like, what is your leadership plan for yourself? How are you developing the leader you're capable of? Because so many people, what I found was they thought of leadership as something you do. It's like a skill set. Like I'm going to take a class and learn leadership, and I'm just going to apply the skill like coding or sales, writing copy or something, or plumbing or something. And what they were missing is that leadership is about becoming a leader. It's a way of being. It's about being a person that other smart, driven, and dedicated people want to follow. And so it's about your own work. And I got some blank stares, man, from some senior leaders. When I started talking about actual leadership, they're like, wait a minute, I have to transform? Like, I have blind spots. I have limiting beliefs. It's about my growth. Like, yeah, this is about you. And so when I ran into that problem, I started bringing, random frameworks and ideas, like different tools sets to the table to help them work through it. And I thought, man, what I really need is I need to sit down and come up with a repeatable system and framework for self-leadership. And, to bring us full circle, right? That is, that my book is A Warrior's Mindset, the 6 Keys to Greatness. The first 5 we talked about at the top of this show, and that's the framework for self-leadership. To create this warrior's mindset is also to become the leader that you're capable of. So gratitude, internal locus of control, North Star, self-discipline, perseverance. And then as you do that process, our 6th key is leadership. You start to amplify impact. So when I started writing my book, what I started realizing was that as I started to put this framework together with all these ideas, I realized I did have holes in it. I was like, oh, I have these random ideas of how to, with gratitude, or how to have plan a mission or do something, but there's something missing in here. And so that was like the heart and most rewarding part of writing a book is almost an examination of my own thoughts. And where was I lacking? And where did I have an idea, but I didn't actually have data to back it up? So I could tell you, hey, based on my experience, self-discipline is important, or perseverance. You can build perseverance. Like you can build resilience and perseverance. Like I knew that from my own experience, but I didn't have, if someone said, no, I don't believe you, I didn't have the backing. I didn't have the rationale, the data to tell them why that was true. Right. And so that was the hardest, but also rewarding part of writing the book, was putting order to the thoughts in my own head to make it more robust, defendable, and repeatable with clients.
Fantastic. I always say that writing a book is like the gym for your mind, and you can it will bring all your ideas together. Tell us a little bit more about this business, the business that you grow at the beginning. You fail like every other entrepreneur, and then how you manage to scale it. Tell us about that business, and what do you enjoy about the process, and what was frustrating?
Good question. So that business, my first business was actually a franchise, and it was a fitness martial arts hybrid gym franchise. And I'd always enjoyed working out and fitness, and I hadn't been in the industry at all. And I enjoyed martial arts. So I wrestled growing up, like American wrestling, wrestled in college. Had then for years in the military trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA, and fought MMA. And so this was like combining those two worlds. So I was like, this is perfect. But I didn't necessarily have like the support on the business end as much as I thought, and made some early financial decisions. Talk about I'll talk about like the good part of this, but the bad part is like I mentioned like that taking small chunks and iterating. And instead in my head, it was, well, it has to be perfect, right? It was like, hey, the one thing you can't overcome is bad real estate in the fitness industry, because there's people aren't going to drive past 4 gyms to come to your gym, right? Like no matter how great it is, like they're going to work out the closest thing to them. And so I took that as, young and inexperienced business person of like, well, that means I need the best location, right? So that means I went and got the most expensive lease in real estate I could because it was the best location in this town. And then I come to find out that I'm paying double per square foot for my lease rate as the average profitable gym inside this franchise. And so all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, you guys aren't all paying 23 grand a month for rent? And they're like, no, that's crazy. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I just signed my life away on a 7-year lease to do this, right? So I got locked in. And then also there was a bit of scope creep. So when I first signed on to be a franchise owner, this franchise was doing 3,000 to 5,000 square foot gyms. So in my head, that was about $500,000 to $600,000 investment in order to get cash flow positive. And then between the time I signed the agreement and I found a location, which is almost a year trying to find real estate, they changed the model. They said, well, actually, we only do 10 to 12,000 square foot gyms. So they doubled the size of the gym or the footprint. But I'd already raised money at a certain valuation. I had already committed my own finances. So I was like, oh man, well, if this thing is going to double, I have to go out and get more money. So instead of in my head fighting back and saying, no, I'm going to do this smaller gym, overly optimistic new business person thinking we got to go big, I said, well, let's go get a loan. So I went and got a $600,000 business loan. And so between rent and the loan, even though I had a gym that when I closed this facility, we were doing and bringing in gross revenue around 45 grand a month, $45,000 a month.
Wow.
We were still losing money. It's good. Yeah. Like operationally, you can figure things out, but it just goes to show you as that young business owner, I think I see other owners do this. We get so engrossed with the top line, with what we can bring in a positive side, which is great, that we lose sight of like, how important the expense side is, because the expense side is actually in more of your control than the big side. So that was the first business.
It happened to me, not in my first business, it gets even worse because my first business was in real estate and was doing very well. It was doing so well that my team sent me home to me, Harry, we can grow this business, we don't need you anymore. So, but then then I go there and I want to open this restaurant, this Spanish restaurant. And I remember I had my Polish business, Matt and Matt. I told them, look, this is going to be the best restaurant, Spanish tapas in London, right? In Brick Lane. Brick Lane is, gave you an idea, in London, it's an area that is a food corridor full of food restaurants. They sell spicy food. And it's famous because the tourists go there to eat the spicy food. I got that brilliant idea that I'm going to do Spanish tapas, halal Spanish tapas, in one of the restaurants there. So I would be the only one different. That was what mine said. But I go there and I said to my Polish business, look, I want a guitar in the ceiling. And my Polish business tell me, Harry, you want a guitar in the ceiling? It's going to take us 2 months. This is not an easy thing. And I'm like, no, I want this guitar because, when people pass by, they're going to come in and it doesn't matter, build it. And they told me, you're going to have the restaurant 2 months closed because of this paying rent. You know that? Yeah, it doesn't matter. I pay the rent and I do my guitar and this restaurant is going to be, well, the guitar rather than 2 months to 3. After you had to, because I didn't have any clue what I was doing, I had to buy all the, I need to hire a chef to tell us about the menu, to create team, and things go on and on. Guess what happened? I opened the door of the restaurant day one, no one coming.
Yeah.
After I put all the money, all the effort, everything, I was so good. And then I realized, number one, because no one come in, so what happened here? I realized that the budget that I used to have for marketing, sales, I put it in, and now it's in the ceiling. My marketing budget is in the ceiling, and I had to run and also everybody in my street, when I start to ask around, everybody have 20, 30 years in restaurant experience, and some of them they
Mm.
came from generation to generation. So I end up in the most competitive food corridor in London with people that literally knew what they're doing. And on top of that, so I had it for 2 years. In the end, I lost like 200,000, and it was a big lesson. I worked there Monday to Sunday, and it was a big lesson that I learned that to keep the same thing that you do. It was restaurant was huge.
Mm.
How big it was that in the freezer, all the people for other restaurant was asking me as a favor, Harry, can we leave some meat and some food in your freezer because the freezer was so big that we have a space for our and for the restaurant neighbors. They used to come and start think that how big it was. So it was crazy. And I learned exactly, well, even that, we make it work. A lot of people came and eat. We make sales. But those overheads kill me. And then guess what happened? Guess even worse. After I left, now if you go to London, Brick Lane, 50% of the food is alternative food, right? And spices. So change the trend. There wasn't in, that was the idea. So the idea was good. But the people that know this business, they know number one, that takes a lot to educate the clients and somebody had to pay for it. So I'll pay to educate the whole clientele of Brick Lane that could be alternative food from my money. And the people that took my restaurant, they're Chinese. So they want to do Chinese alternative. So they didn't do the spicy. And guess what happened? The Chinese
What?
guy opened the door, saw my Spanish guitar in the ceiling. I said, well, the guitar is still there. And it's a
I mean,
Chinese
exactly.
restaurant. Yeah, the Chinese
Yeah.
guy that took it out and said, no, you know what? No way that I'm going to spend a penny removing this guitar. So the guitar is saying the ceiling, who cares? Nobody's going to look up. I'm doing my Chinese thing. And the guy from day one is time making money. And that's why, Sean, I learned that lesson the hard way. So
It's a tough one. It's a tough one to learn.
it's
And
tough, but maybe happen. And I always say things don't happen to you. People have things happen for you. Because now every time that everybody call me, Harry, let's make million, let's do this business. I say, hold on a minute. Especially
yes.
restaurants. Harry, let's have a restaurant. What's your restaurant idea? No. I had one, I can tell you that
Hmm.
one thing is what it seems. The other thing is the reality when you are inside the operation and you have food costs and you have operation, you have team and you have leadership. You need to be able to control the team to do the things and they get busy. You name it. So uh, I have a few stories, but this one, I think this one is the worst that I remember that one vividly. It happened like maybe 16 years ago. Okay, Sean.
Oh,
So
wow.
then that lesson led you to
Hmm.
something because what happened in
Yep.
the other business that you managed to scale?
Yeah, absolutely. So then the next business, I realized one, I learned all those lessons we just talked about, and it sounds like you did too in the restaurant industry. So and also realized I didn't really want to be. I got clarity for myself. Like I didn't really want to be in the fitness industry, but I really liked the martial arts business and the vibe. So luckily, because I had a couple of partners, because I went through bankruptcy, so I lost everything. I had a couple of partners in that first business that saw how I operated and realized, luckily, like, hey, he learned his lessons. He was operating well, just made some early mistakes, and they believed in me. So we went in together and opened up our own Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym. And at one point, we grew that to 4 locations. Valued a couple $1 million. And we,
Wow. And this one doesn't need that much space, right? Now you're paying small
yeah, it's
rent, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. Much smaller space. So like good like business lessons, like much smaller space, a lot less equipment, right? Like gym equipment, kind of like a restaurant kitchen, super expensive, super expensive. Just need some
No
mats,
cost. You
right?
don't need to buy anything in this. You
Mm-mm.
need just the space and that's it.
Yeah, just the space. Usually mats are 15 grand or something. But my I think in total my equipment on my first gym was like $350,000 and just on equipment. So
Oh,
so we
that's
kept overhead
heavy.
low.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
and
heavy.
exactly. It's a lot, like the equipment, those weights, all that stuff, that treadmills, like that stuff's expensive and it adds up, especially in 10,000 square foot space. So good lessons there on like, hey, smaller space, so you get more per square foot, you're making more money there. Lower overhead on initial costs, so you're not starting as in debt. So can you start a business that, or find a way to start a
Because you
business
need
that
money
doesn't?
for marketing. You need money to tell people where you are. And if you blow it in the space, then how people going to find you, right?
Yeah, so if you put a giant guitar in the ceiling, so yeah, so that, and then the other thing is that on a business sense, right, with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and martial arts, is its churn rate and is so much lower. And the customer loyalty is so much higher. So the relationships that you develop in that environment is much stickier. And so,
Oh,
a
you
lot of
have more
times when it comes,
retention. You have more retention,
yeah,
Sean.
retention is much
Brilliant.
better. People stick with
Brilliant.
it. Yeah. And, if you think about it, like at a gym, at a fitness center, is kind of like a restaurant business in the sense that for most people, where do they get excited? They get excited because the new restaurant opened, right? And the fitness industry is actually a lot like that. It's like people get excited because, like, oh, this new type of gym, this new class, the Burn Boot Camp or the new CrossFit or the new Orange Theory, or they're always looking for like the new fun thing, the novelty of something new. And so it's really hard to, you almost have to constantly reinvent yourself in the fitness industry to keep up. Um, as where the martial arts space is that there's actually a lot of loyalty. Like once someone is in a structure and learning from certain instructors and they have their teammates around them, it's actually like very rare for them to go to another gym in town unless they did something wrong or they had a really bad experience. Like there's a lot of loyalty built in. So people are very much more inclined to stay there as opposed to go look for the new great thing. And so we've really focused on culture. We were focused on team, and we focused on creating an environment that was welcoming to people that want to compete and be at a high level in world-class jiu-jitsu, and kids and families and women, and made it accessible for people to come in. So we have a lot. We have several dozens of families where mom, dad, kids all get to train together. So now there's an activity they get to do together. And so we really focused on culture, and the business mechanics are much better. And so we grew that to multiple locations, and we ended up selling one for a profit. And we have 2 locations, over 500 students. And the nice part is that for the last 5 years, I've got a CEO over the top, and then we have a GM in a junior manager in each location. And I just show up and teach jujitsu in the morning a couple times a week and get to kind of do the fun stuff. So it really, again, it solved what I was looking for in this business, which I wasn't looking for something to grow to multi-million dollars and sell off. I was passionate about the impact this could have in people's lives. I was passionate about the work, and I got to proof out how to, like you mentioned, marketing, sales, operations, accounting. I get to prove
How to
how to
pivot. If
pivot.
something don't work,
Yeah.
you learn, and then entrepreneurs, we never pay. We just come back in different form, in a
Yeah.
more
Yes.
sophisticated form. Yes, and
Hmm.
you see we have setbacks, but when we come back in a way that we think, and also, however, and you can design something that will suit you, right? So again, you don't want 100 million, multi-million. You want to have a lifestyle business that give you good money, right?
Hmm.
And do you what you love, which is these people making a difference in these people's life. And it doesn't need to be 1 million people, even if these hundreds that they're there, you're making an impact. And they are the last week I interviewed in a panel in a startup on my Peru, which is we can call it the father of LA Fitness. He was in the stage with me. So basically, he's the owner of the biggest gym chain in United States when he was 31 years old, and the company who bought the chain of gyms that he owns built LA Fitness on top of that. So great credit. But again, the guy was passionate about personal training and was actually pointing out this to me, exactly what you said. He told me, Harry, back then, when we have to have a gym, it has to be huge, he told me.
Hmm.
I had to hire a lot of money in equipment and square footage to open any new gym. He told me today it's different. Today, he told me it's a lot of money to be made and exactly models exactly as you described. He told me today now you have some facilities small and you make it specific and there is more opportunities. He said for him it was difficult. It was a lot of money commitment every time that he need to open a new and so great. I have a great feeling with him. I agree with you, Sean, 100%. The big lesson for entrepreneurs might have is keep it tight and keep it niche and keep your costs down. Okay. We didn't. If we knew, I won't make guitar in a restaurant. You know,
Yeah.
or you won't be this huge gym, right? We only learn because being an entrepreneur is a skill set. The more you practice, the better you become. We just don't know.
Yes.
And even if somebody tell us until we don't do it, then that's also a process as well that I had to go through to start to listen more. Because my first business, I was lucky, just lucky that I was a product market fit. Really, it was fast. It was a property business that we have in London where we were rent the units full, the houses, and then rent the units separate in the United States. They couldn't live. And this business was in a moment in time when Airbnb was not there and it was literally no competition. We have all the market for ourselves and it was a piece of cake. And I thought that was a big deal and I knew everything about business. And this restaurant gave me a big slap on the face that I didn't have any
Mm,
clue what I was doing, that I was just a baby. And I still have a lot and no business was similar. So uh, I don't regret it because we can have this conversation and we understand
hmm.
the process that we go through. Some people fail at the beginning, but some people like me even make it good and then fail after because still you need to have skill to develop the skill as an entrepreneur. So if someone is in love with this conversation, Sean, I think you're brilliant. You're so clever. And I want to point out something here before we go, which is to your fellow people from the military, from the armed forces, okay? Because it came to my attention, I guess in this podcast told me, that there is a large suicidal rate into the veterans when they come back of the combat because there is they have been back into the communities with the family to the friends, but because you guys have been living intense experiences out there, only you understand each other, only you uh, can build community among yourself, and if those ones they are the veterans they get left separate with their families, so the likelihood of suicidal and alcohol and drug is way higher than I was expecting in the United States. Somebody raised this point in this book. So, on the other hand, like you find a purpose in life. You said, okay, I'm going to do a business. It doesn't matter, I lose the money. I'm going to find purpose. I'm going to build your business. So, what message do you have for your fellow veterans? They're having hard time now. Okay, I
Mm,
actually working in a program. We want the veterans to teach entrepreneurship because I think that's a good
mm,
way for them to learn the skills about leadership, mission first, something that you guys have embedded already. It's natural for you guys, and I think we all entrepreneurs need this in order to and right to ask me because I'm several times I've been asked to speak all over the world. Harry, talk about entrepreneurship, talk about how to start business, how to grow business, how to values of the entrepreneur can have. And I always say, right now, me, you know who's better than me? A veteran to talk about this. Yeah,
mm,
you should
mm,
be hiring
mm.
them and paying money to them. They're better than me doing this stuff, right? So, but Sean, what message do you have for your fellow veterans that are having hard time,
Mm.
and how you came back? Do you have any challenge? Do you feel lost at some point? Do you have support from your community? So, to conclude this, because I think it's important.
No, I appreciate that, Harry. Yeah, transition out of the military is very hard. I went to the military academy, 3 weeks after high school. So I went from my parents' house to basic training barracks, and I got out of the military when I was 32. So my entire young adult
Oh,
life
wow.
was,
Wow. It's
yeah.
a
So
lot
my
of
entire
time.
young adult life, yeah, an important time, right? Like that time of your life is how you develop kind of who you are. And so what I would say is that people think that, well, if I do this right, I'll transition to the military and or out of the military and civilian world in 6 months or a year. It's like, man, it's a long time. It's going to take years of constant changing and adapting and rediscovering yourself. And what I tell veterans is that it really comes down to two things, and you mentioned a couple of them. It's identity and purpose. And the military, and it's one of the reasons that people love being in the military is it's I think those are two very important human constructs that we need to have, and the military sort of gives them to you, right? You get to be a soldier or an airman or a sailor, right? Like you're very clear like on what your identity is, and it's easy to get sucked into that as a job, and it's your identity. And then your purpose, right? You're given a mission. You're a part of something mentioned, where's mindset, part of something bigger than yourself. You're fighting for something bigger than yourself. And I think that's so important to having fulfillment as a human being. So you're sort of like given those for so long. And what I would say is that the difference is now when you get out is that you have to define those things for yourself. No one's going to come and tell you, who you should be, or they will, but it won't be helpful, right? Or somebody's going to enlist you for some other mission, right? Some other purpose. But
Somebody
you
tell
have,
you're not gonna listen unless that another veteran tell you.
yeah,
Because I
that's
already
true
know
too. Yeah,
we have this with the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs we only listen to other entrepreneurs. So why they don't listen?
that's really true. I think what I would just tell them is like it comes down to you have to intentionally, proactively, and aggressively like start doing hard work and figuring out who you are as a human being. Like, and this is really how you create resilience for anyone. So this is an important message for veterans, but I would say it's for everyone. Of if you tie to any title, job, relationship, right? It's like I mean, you see this with let's say a mother who stays at home with her kids, and for 20 years her value comes from these kids needing her, that she gives value, and then they move on and they grow up, and she's like, I have no worth. This is my whole value as a human being has been this transaction, like showing value for another person, and that's actually that's resilient. Like not lasting. And just like you might say, I'm an entrepreneur, and then you lose your business. Now who are you? And if it's to, well, I'm a restaurateur and that's your identity, you're going to be stripped down to your core. And so you have to really focus on like, who are you as a human being? Who do you want to be as a human being that is independent of any relationship or job title? So who is Sean? Who is Harry? Like figure out who that is as an identity. And like, that's important work to do. And then what is that larger purpose? And something big and important. And what you will find is that when you're in service of other people, it's very, all of a sudden you feel better because you're not focused on yourself. You're focused on the impact you're having on others. And that actually makes you feel better. So I would just say, look, give yourself grace. It takes time. If you need help, go get help. It takes years and years and years. There's no time set. There's no expiration date, man. Just keep it's a concept of growth as a human being, and focus on figuring out who you are as a person, your identity, and what you want your purpose to be now, and go chase it.
Sean, if someone is in love with this conversation, how people can find you, how this process work, how they can buy your book, where can they buy the book? Can you share all this with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal website is seanpatton.me. That's SeanPatton.me. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. My podcast, No Limit Leadership, is on Spotify and Apple and YouTube and all that stuff. So you can find that anywhere. My book, A Warrior's Mindset, is on Amazon. And if you're interested for seeing what's possible for you and your team, then I would say come find me at Novus Global. That's where my business is under now, and I'm partnered with some amazing coaches over there who work with everything from Fortune 100, corporate executives to professional athletes and everything in between. And so we'd love to explore your vision over at Novus Global.
Thank you so much, Sean, and for the podcast. They have been an amazing an honor to interview you. And for all of you following the podcast, see you in our next episode. Our brave entrepreneur like Sean made a world a better place. Bye for now.
Follow us for more on charismatic speaking, leadership, exponential business growth, branding, marketing, strategies designed to help you monetize your knowledge, find true happiness, and manifest your goals and dreams.